Hello everyone, and welcome to Aflatoun's webinar on how to report your program data on a yearly basis as part of our annual reporting. Now first of all, I'd like to talk about why are we doing this now. One reason is that we have a lot more variation in programs, so we need to be clear about what we're counting and what we mean by an Aflatoun program, or an Aflateen program, or an Aflatot program. For all of us, I'm sure the most important reason is that we want to ensure that all the children in our programs are indeed receiving high-quality social financial education programs. We also need to make sure that at a secretariat level and at a network level, we're able to have comparability across different curriculums, different countries, and different regions. So that way we can say how many children are in Aflatoun, how many youth are in Aflateen, and what types of programs are these that they're taking part of. Are they 100% Aflatoun, or are they a mix of Aflatoun plus some other intervention, such as a health intervention? The other reason is to provide partners, you all, with updated information on how to count children, so to help you in filling out our annual survey. And for all of us, we hope that this will help us assess changes and respond to adaptations and strengthen the program across the network. Some examples of challenging situations, and here by challenging we mean situations that are not what we initially thought of when we thought of an Aflatoun program. These are maybe innovations, or collaborations, or a combination of our program with another program. So one example is that a government might agree to integrate some of the lessons into the curriculum, but not all of the lessons, and perhaps for good reasons. They might argue that they already have certain rights-based lessons in the curriculum and they don't need to duplicate them. Or they might argue that they already have certain entrepreneurship classes and lessons in the curriculum and do not need to reproduce them. So this is one challenge. Another challenge is that we're combining Aflateen and Aflatoun with other programs that cover other lessons and might have some overlap. So perhaps you combine Aflateen or Aflatoun with a health intervention, and that health intervention has discussions about gender. In Aflatoun and Aflateen we also have discussions about gender, so perhaps you keep both lessons, or perhaps you remove the duplication. Another example is that core to Aflatoun is our savings activity, right? Actually giving the children a chance to practice saving. And many educational authorities do not allow savings or use of monetary resources in classes. So there might be regulatory authorities that do not allow certain activities to take place, in which case we need to be able to monitor this and also be able to make a clear and transparent decision about whether these activities are always necessary and in which cases they are, in which cases they are not. Another is that we have not always used the Aflatoun brand in the curriculum, and initially we thought that this would be the case. So sometimes a program might not be called Aflatoun at all, but it was indeed based on our program. But we obviously need to differentiate between those based on Aflatoun that are not called Aflatoun versus completely different financial programs, or social financial programs. Some other examples is that we deliver Aflatoun to children in weekend camps rather than throughout a whole year-long course. Some partners have used CDs or e-learning or radio to deliver it. Some have selected lessons that are only financial. Some teachers don't use active learning methods, so they use passive learning and rote learning methods. And as already mentioned, some have even used mass media, such as radio. So, given this variation and innovation in the network, it's important that we're clear about what Aflatoun is. So, as you all know, there are 5 core components to Aflatoun, the first 2 being social in nature, and those are personal understanding and exploration, and rights and responsibilities. The last 3 being financial in nature are savings and spending, planning and budgeting, social and financial enterprise. One important note here is that in the curriculum, sections and chapters might not always be titled this. For example, in the new Aflatoun curriculum, there's a Managing Resources chapter, which contains both savings and spending and planning and budgeting topics. But still, the 5 core components are the core of what we do. The other thing is it's important how it is delivered, not just the content. So it's important that their child-centered methods are being used, and this includes active learning methods, which are taught in our trainings, pair and group work, which are a subtype of active learning methods, savings activities, where actually they put in practice what they learn, elections and group decision making, basically putting in practice ideas of citizenship, engagement, and listening to others' opinions, and finally some sort of social and financial enterprises, whether they be very small projects organized in Aflatoun, all the way up to full-fledged financial enterprises with Aflatoun youth. So the final component that we think about when we're thinking about what is Aflatoun is, of course, it's a collection of books. Each book has sections, and each section has lesson plans, and all of these have particular objectives, right? And it's important for us to distinguish the objectives from the lesson plans, because obviously our partners, including you, need to make adaptations for your local context of the lesson plans, but we hope that the objectives remain more or less the same. So to get more specific about what is a program, so this is a classic program, right? Most partners fall into this category. So 3 components of a classic program, and this is what we're talking about when we ask, for example, how many children are in your program, how many teachers are actively delivering your program. So one is that the time should be at least 20 hours. This includes 10 hours of lessons plus 10 more hours. These 10 additional hours can either be activities, such as savings groups meetings, enterprise meetings, visits to banks, and so on, or they could also be 10 additional lessons. Most of the books have at least 20 lessons, so you'll be able to cover this one way or the other. In some cases, you might take one lesson and cover it across 2 hours, for example, because the content is important for your context. So again, it's 10 hours of lessons plus 10 hours of activities and or lessons. So what else? The content. It must have a majority of the core components, so 3 out of 5 of the core elements. The program must contain a balance of both social and financial education. A core component of what we do, or core part of our mission, is that it's social and financial education, not just financial and not just social. Additional content from partners can indeed substitute Aflatoun content if it's done transparently in discussion with us, and we have some sort of verification that says, yes, this content from the partner is an adequate substitute for the original Aflatoun content, right? What we do not want, for example, is for some institution perhaps to replace a rights-based lesson with a non-rights-based lesson, but call it rights-based. Right? So basically there can be substitution of Aflatoun content, we just have to be clear about what's happening. Okay? And then the total program should cover the following 10 themes, right? These might be independent lessons per theme, or they might be cross-cutting. So the 10 themes are as follows: building self-confidence, critical thinking, these 2 are from core component 1, respect for diversity and child rights, this is core component 2, child-led activities, this would be a combination of active learning as well as enterprise and other activities, saving money, right, from core component 3, saving resources, also from core component 3, and here we mean resources such as anything from water to time to electricity to food to toys to clothing, so on. Anything that's not actually cash. Next is money management, right? This is core component 3 and 4. Next is goal planning, this is core component 4. Next is teamwork, and this is cross-cutting, but especially from the enterprise section. And finally, social and financial enterprises. So these 10 themes should be somewhere in the curriculum. And part of our yearly data collection, as you'll see later, we'll be asking, does your program cover these themes? And you can click yes or no for each of them. If you're not covering all of them, it's fine, we will still count your program, it's just that we'll have to differentiate it. These are the programs that have all of the 10, these are the programs that have some subset, and these are the reasons why they have some subset. Right? It's just for us to distinguish different categories of partners and different categories of programs. So essentially here we have the bare minimum for a classic Aflatoun program. Finally, methodology. It's important that the program be child-centered, so it must include some sort of active or group learning and/or group learning. And there must be some learning by doing, which is a bit related to the active component. But this includes things like elections to put into practice what children learn about respecting others' opinions. Voting, again, group decision making, again, putting in practice what they learn about working in teams. Some sort of savings, so they might have class savings or group savings, and social financial projects. There could be other examples, but essentially they should be learning by actually doing the things they learn. This is a core part of our theory of change and how our program works. How is this validated for partners? Right? So how are we checking to see which of these components are there and what number of hours are being completed? Well, the first thing, which we're talking about mainly at the end of this webinar, is the partner self-reported surveys. Every January, or in this case February, we send to all partners an online survey which should be filled out, and it includes questions on program components as well as questions on the reach of the program. This now includes, as you have here, Aflatoun and Aflatoun numbers, and in the future years it'll include collecting data on Aflatot. So going forward, we're going to differentiate each of the programs, how many children are in Aflatoun, how many youth are in Aflatoun, and in the future how many children are in Aflatot. Now in all these cases, these are children that have completed at least 20 hours of the program, right? So it's not those who just started the program, they must have completed a program in the calendar year of the questionnaire. So this year we're going to give out a questionnaire, a survey for 2013, and you should only be filling out children or youth who have completed at least 20 hours of the program in 2013, so they've completed an entire cycle of the program. This is collected each year for the previous calendar year. So again, this is 2014 that you're seeing this, but we will be collecting from you your data from 2013 because we have to wait until the programs all finish in 2013. The other mode of confirming what sort of programs are being delivered is learning and facilitation visits. These are done by program managers or by other strong partners from your region or from your country. They'll help work with you to identify strengths and weaknesses in your approach, and essentially these are for learning, right? They're for learning and to facilitate the improvement of the program. Finally, there will be program manager input into how each program is classified, and this will come from information that you might have shared with your program manager via emails, meetings, discussions, and so on. It also might involve content sent, such as reports. Finally, there will also be, in select cases, research projects, depending on the needs of the network. And by needs of the network, we mean whether there's a new methodology being applied by a partner, which is innovative, and also we would want to learn more about so we can share it with the rest of the network so they can also use this innovative approach. This will only apply to select projects as identified, right? So for most partners, this will not be important for validation. For most of you, it'll just be self-reporting, the normal LFVs, learning facilitation visits, which you might have already had, and again, your interaction with program managers. So likely not a large change for you as we're working on categorizing the programs in the network. So dealing with new situations, these are the innovative hybrid programs which might need some sort of additional research. Right? We care most not about numbers, but actually about whether children are learning and changing their knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. Right? We're open to innovations and adaptations. This is one of our strengths as a network, is that we're flexible. We have strong core components, we have strong objectives, but we're able to be flexible to local contexts and local needs. But this also has challenges, right? We might have very new situations in which we need to determine if indeed the new program is still helping children in improving their attitudes and behavior. This process that I'm about to show you has been discussed with the board, both the general board and the daily board, as well as with partners, and presented in part at the international meeting. So we hope that it's not entirely new to you. If you have any questions, as always, you can contact your relevant program manager, or you can contact myself, Daniel, or Simon. So this Daniel Shepard or Simon Bailey as well. So the process at a high level is quite simple. So if you have a very innovative program that doesn't fulfill the criteria of a basic program presented earlier, we need to do some sort of validation process to see what's going on, whether it is indeed Aflatoun, social financial education, and if indeed it's helping children in the way that we hope it is. Once we have that validation process completed, we can consider that as a new innovative program, but we can build it into the larger program category. Right? So essentially then it becomes a normal way of delivering a program because it's been validated. So what is validation? Well, first you have innovative or mixed programs. By mixed we mean some sort of combination of social financial education with some other intervention. The first question for us is it Aflatoun? So first is, did we or the partner have a influence on the content, and does it look like social financial education? Right? What we want to avoid is counting programs that were inspired by us but don't use any of our specific content. Right? So first question, is it Aflatoun? This can be verified through just a discussion, but also through a process assessment. So for example, there might be a researcher who comes, observes classrooms, looks at documentation, looks at the curriculum, looks at emails and processes for how the curriculum came to be, and tries to find out if there was an influence by Aflatoun as a secretariat or as a partner, and whether the content is, again, like Aflatoun. Right, so if it is Aflatoun, if it is social financial, if it is balance and so on, we look and see if there's maybe a similar program that we've validated in the past with more rigorous research. So if we find that there was another program, maybe a year earlier, or the same year, or 3 years ago, that did the same sort of innovative process and did a research project, then we can count this new innovation as similar enough to the previous innovation that we can bring it into the core program children category. So here you can imagine there's two programs, both integrated with the government, both made the same changes. In that integration, we might do research only on one of the two, and then since the other one is so similar, we also count that as well. So both become counted once we validate one of the two, for example. So if it is not similar to something else, if it is completely new, then we need to do some sort of outcome assessment, and we need to see if children are getting short-term improvement on key indicators. For us, the most important thing is that kids are learning and that the children are improving their lives. Right? After this outcome assessment is done, if it does show that there's positive movement on the key indicators for social and financial topics, then this again becomes a new type of program that's counted as a core program. If it does not show this movement, then it'll be reported separately, maybe as some sort of innovation or spillover, or perhaps as a program that requires further refinement and additional research. So first, is it Aflatoun? Second, is it similar to something else that has already been validated? If so, it is counted. And if not, then we have to do research to see if children are learning. If the research shows that they're learning, then we count it as a new program modality. If they're not learning, then we have to make a decision about to do more research or to report it as a positive spillover, but an incomplete program. What is a process assessment? A process assessment essentially looks at two things, right? One is comparability. Is it similar to Aflatoun as such, and is it similar to another Aflatoun program? And second is influence, right? We want to see, does it look like Aflatoun, and does it look like Aflatoun or Aflatoun partners played a role in the creation of the learning material? And then it'll also include some sort of reporting tool that will provide to programs who go through the process and provide them with next steps, right? Either next steps for how to become more similar to an Aflatoun program and to strengthen the social or financial components, or next steps as far as whether or not there needs to be a research project that looks at an outcome evaluation, right? So after this, we compare against other interventions. If there's an existing evaluation, we can perhaps count it. If there's not an existing evaluation, then we have to do a new evaluation. Outcome assessment attempts to determine what the contribution of Aflatoun has had on the knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors of the children or the youth in the program. So is this new innovation? Is it effective? Now, this is not going to always be done with with the most rigorous and the most large studies because of resource constraints, but it will always be done with a sufficiently rigorous process, and we have chosen pre-post tests because in evaluation standards, these are in the middle of the hierarchy of the quality of evidence to see if there's some sort of change. Ideally, we'll do this with a control group, but if not, we will just do before and after to see how children are changing over time. Another component of such research is that it should be done in partnership with the partner and in agreement with the partner, and it should also be done whenever possible with a consultant so that we have some external eyes on the issue. This should be designed together, and it should be usually done through shared funding of research. So maybe in-kind shared funding or shared monetary funding, or perhaps we'll need to raise funds for this research. The outcome assessment will use tools from the Aflatoun Secretariat to make sure that they're comparable across programs. It'll be completed with a methodology that is sufficiently rigorous in consultation with the Secretariat, and the analysis will be done in line with norms of research studies of this type to ensure that they're, again, sufficiently rigorous, unbiased, and transparent. This outcome assessment, again, this only applies to programs that are innovative, that are not similar to other programs, and that need to determine if this new innovation is actually working to help children in the ways that we plan that it is and hope that it is. Here you have some examples. I won't go through them in detail, but you can see we have three general categories. One is government integration. Governments will probably not take 100% of our content, so we need to be realistic about what they take, and we need to monitor how effective it is. Next we have the example of social marketing and e-learning. E-learning, if it's on the computer, it's easy to collect data to see if it's effective. If it's social marketing, television and radio, for example, it's more difficult, and you'll see down here the key thing is that we'll do some sort of combination of individuals reached by the mass media multiplied by the number of individuals impacted. Right? This is to help correct, for example, if you have a television show and you have 1 million people watching it, only perhaps 10% of those million are actually listening. Maybe the others are also cooking or talking and not paying attention. Right? So this will only apply to those that are doing some sort of multimedia outreach, such as mass print media, newspapers, TV, radio, and so on. Again, if you have any questions on this, please contact myself, Daniel Shepard, or Simon Bailey. Another example is teacher training. So if teacher training institutes are partnering with Aflatoun partners and working directly with Aflatoun partners, then we will basically treat these as normal programs if they have all the core components and are delivering to children. If they're not linked to a partner, then we have to do some sort of outcome evaluation and process evaluation to make sure that they're indeed implementing the program and indeed actually teaching children in the end, and not just training teachers and never delivering social financial education to the children. Again, we have some more examples for discussion, but I'll skip these for now. I encourage you to read through the questions. These are the sort of questions that we would be asking ourselves as we go through the process assessment and outcome assessment for government integration or through mass media or magazines with schools. And you can think if you have additional questions and get in touch with us. So in conclusion, we want children around the world to get comparable and high-quality programs. So we need to know that these programs that are being delivered with flexibility across 103 countries are indeed similar enough and are indeed social financial education, and that the children are indeed learning. Secondly, we need to be clear and transparent with partners and stakeholders about how program numbers are measured, reached, and reported. And we hope to deal with innovative program methods and retain our flexibility as a key strength. How does it affect you? Right? For most partners, there's little impact on how you measure your programs. Right? For most partners, all you need to do is report on the annual survey, which goes out in January and February, and answer the additional questions in the annual survey. For those partners who do have some sort of hybrid, innovative, or integrated programs, I would encourage you just to get in touch with your program manager and the research manager, and we'll discuss how to go forward on this. Now, I'd like to move on to how we actually collect the data and the survey process. So this will be part 2 of our webinar. If you'd like to take a break, get a coffee, relax, feel free to do so, and then come back for the second section. I'll share with you how we suggest to count different indicators, such as children, teachers, savings, enterprise, and so on, and also show you a sample of the survey. Okay, now let's move on to how we actually collect the data, what questions will be on the survey, and how you can fill out those questions. We want to make sure that everyone across over 100 partners has a shared idea about how to fill out the survey so that we're all getting and giving the same sort of information. So first of all, we all want to make sure that as many children as possible have access to social financial education, so a key indicator is the number of children being reached by the program in any given year. In the survey, we're always asking you how many children or youth completed an entire cycle, 20 hours, of Aflatoun, Aflatoun, or Aflatot in the previous annual year. So it's only the children from that year. It's not all the children throughout history in your program. It's just the children from the previous annual year, and just the children that completed a cycle of the program, not counting children who entered the program at the end of the year but have not completed. So only those that have completed in that calendar year. So there are 2 ways that we suggest doing that. The first is more detailed and more accurate, and that is to take attendance at every single meeting or class and average this attendance at the end of the year. And I'll give you the average of the number of students who are attending Aflatoun, Aflatot program during the year. The other option, because this is difficult for larger programs in different settings, is to more easily just collect data on the end of the program, do a survey of the program, and see how many children or youth finished the program, and then you make the assumption that they were there for the entire program, right? And you just need to be careful that you don't count some new class that joined only in the last week that gave you 100 more students. So these are only those that were there, so it's the assumption that they were there for the entirety. This is not a perfect way to count, but it's perhaps the easiest way. You wait till the end of the program for that year, and you do a survey, see how many children. If you have a very large program, you can use a representative sample, and please get in touch with us, and we can give you some advice on how to construct a representative sample so that you do not have to ask every single class, but rather you can ask a smaller group, and then you can use that to extrapolate to the rest of the group. Another thing is that because we're a rights-based organization, it's very important that we report the number of girls and boys separately. So please do collect gender information in your program, and on the survey, answer the question that says how many boys and how many girls. For this question, there will be a different question for each of your programs. So that means there'll be a different question for Aflatoun, formal education. There'll be a different question for Aflatoun non-formal education. There'll be a different question for Aflateen, and in the future a different question for Aflatot. So you'll have, for each program, each curriculum, you'll have one report each of how many children, and then at the end, we at the Secretariat will do an aggregate of all those programs you are implementing, and also show your total number. So you do not need to aggregate across curriculum, just report each curriculum individually. Next, how do you count savings, right? Social financial education, Aflatoun Child Savings International. Obviously, savings is an important component of what we do, but it is not always easy to measure. So our solution for savings is as follows. Please average the last month of the program's savings rates, right? So in the last month of the program, in the same month that you're perhaps asking how many children in each class, please find out what percentage of students in that last month were saving. This is the percentage of students, not the percentage of classes. So, for example, you might have 10 classes, all of which have savings, but in those 10 classes, only 50% of the students actually use the savings process. So you should report 50%, not 100% in that example. So it should be the percentage of students who are saving in the final month of the program. Right, that's this right here. You'll also be asked for how much did they save. So here you'll take the average saved amount for that final month of the program. Right? The easiest way to do this is through surveys and evaluations of the classes. Right? Again, so you'll ask the students, how much did you save in the final month of the program? This will then become the average monthly saving in the final month of the program. Okay. We're using 1 month as a reference period because it's simpler to calculate. It's also using a similar process as what's used for unemployment, where people ask just a previous week were you employed or not, and that's the reference period. So for us, the reference period is the final month of the program. As I said, you can measure this through surveys. You can also measure this by calculating it from savings ledgers, and you can also use bank account records. Again, if possible, please report boys and girls separately. Next, how do we count enterprises, right? So there are two things with enterprises that we count. One is the total number of enterprises, and secondly is the total number of children participating in those enterprises. And that goes for both social and financial enterprises. Now, for financial enterprises only, we also ask what is the amount of money, of profit, that the children got from their enterprise. So there'll be an additional question on this. An enterprise should be an organized project that lasts a defined period of time and has a predetermined goal, right? So this is not just an ad hoc event. So if you just decide to have a party one day, or last minute decide to have Aflatoun Day, but the children were not involved in planning it, that would not be an enterprise. However, if you started 3 weeks before planning Aflatoun Day, the children were involved, they set the goal of raising awareness, they then worked on it for that period of time, and then monitored that predetermined goal of raising awareness in Aflatoun in their community, that would be an enterprise. So it has to be an organized project with children's involvement, with a defined period of time and a predetermined goal. How to determine whether it's social or financial? The primary goal of a financial enterprise is to make money. Primary goal of a social enterprise is to have a positive impact. If it is a mix, so if they're making money towards having a positive impact, use your best judgment. We suggest that you do surveys with teachers and ask them the following questions. How many financial enterprises were conducted in your classes during 2013, for example? How many children participated in the financial enterprises in 2013? In total, how many social enterprises were conducted? Again, you'll want to provide them with a definition of social enterprise. And then how many participated in the social enterprise. Okay, next we have how to count teachers and individuals trained. These are two separate indicators. So teachers are those who are actively delivering the program in a given year, even if they didn't receive training that year. So this is the total number of teachers or facilitators or peer educators who are delivering the program. Next we have individuals trained. These are all those that attended training events in a calendar year, and it includes those that attended but did not deliver. So you might have some people that come to training but never teach the program. These people that come to training should still be reported as individuals trained, even if they don't teach. Next we have costs. Costs as well as savings as well as enterprise should be reported in your local currency. Please also report the name of your local currency in the survey so that we will then convert them all centrally. So please report in your local currency. This is to calculate the cost per child for fundraising, cost-benefit analysis, and scale-up planning. Only count costs that are related to Aflatoun, Aflatoun, or Aflatot. If the costs are unknown, do your best to estimate by multiplying the percentage of work on Aflatoun, Aflatot, Aflatoun by the total budget. So if you have a total budget of 100,000 and 20% of your time is on our programs, 100,000 times 20% would give you 20,000, and 20,000 would be what you report. So thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation, and now I'd like to show you the actual survey. The survey will be coming to you on February 10th. Right, so please put that date in your calendar. February 10th is the beginning of the survey. All information should be completed and entered and submitted before March 10th, so you have 1 month to complete it. Please collect the information beforehand, as it will ease the process of submitting the data. It'll be a quick process if you already have the data in hand. There are only a few dozen questions. So when you go through the survey, you'll get an email. It'll be in English, Arabic, French, Russian, and Spanish. Then you go to the survey, you click a link. It'll look like this. You click the language of choice, fill out the information, go next. For each program, it'll ask you questions about the reach. So this is about Aflatoun formal schools. And then if you did Aflatoun, then you'd go next, and there'd be another set of questions for Aflatoun that's separate. So please report each program separately. These are the questions that we already discussed. Then you have the questions on total number of teachers and training events and individuals trained. And you have cost questions. This is the total cost of your program. These are the line items. All of these line items should add up together to this cost. And then you have the number of staff working on Aflatoun. Then finally you have this fidelity checklist. This is to see what type of project you're implementing and how we might be able to support you. Here you have yes or no questions. Here you have which core components you're doing, and you select all that apply. Here you have the themes that are covered, and you select all that apply. All of this is relative to the previous year. So for us now, it's for 2013. After you're finished, you click submit, and then you're done. The whole process of filling out the survey, if you already have the information on hand, should take less than 30 minutes. So I do suggest that you have the information on hand. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing the reach of all of your programs this coming year. Also, if you have any questions, please email me or your program manager. My email is daniel@aflatoun.org. Have a great day and have a great year.